And I'm already sharing my screen. And I hope everybody can see that. If you can't, somebody let me know. And then we'll go ahead and get started. And as I said, I'm pretty informal. So if you have a question, sometimes it's easier to answer the question when we are right on that screen. We're going to do a little bit of PowerPoint and then mostly live demonstration. But we're going to talk about some background for a second. I do see something in the chat. Do we think we need to answer that?
Oh, that's just me.
Okay, good. Good. Okay, then I'm not going to watch that at all, Jenny. You got it. I'm going to let you have it. Okay, let's go ahead and get going. So let's first talk about what are parts of a journal article. So I think that this is pretty fundamental, and maybe you already know this information, but sometimes you just need to get everybody on the same page. And so I think, parts of our article before we start talking about literature reviews and then systematic literature reviews is a good place to look. So most articles will have something that is structured like this. You're going to have an introduction, a literature review, methods, results, discussions, conclusions, and then of course your references. So maybe methods is listed as methods or methodology, or literature review may not be identified straight in there. It may be kind of just still in the overall introduction, but you can see when the literature review kind of starts after that first paragraph that they are citing a lot of information in the field. So, and then sometimes results is really analysis. So we have some synonyms sometimes representative, but mostly the concepts are here. Then a literature review really looks at a body of literature and kind of critiques and summarizes that literature. It draws conclusions about the topic. It identifies gaps or inconsistencies in the literature. And it requires you having a focused research question. So if you are really doing some research in an area and you're going to do like a study, a controlled experiment or a survey where you're gathering information from others, you're really going to know what your focused research question is. And then when you start looking at the literature, you can see, oh, this is where I really want to build on, or this is where I see the inconsistencies in this, and I want to make sure that, maybe my question can answer that and we cannot have an inconsistency. Or maybe there's a gap. How do we get from here to here? And I want to kind of fill in that gap. So by doing all of that, using the literature review to critique and summarize, you show that you have a command of the subject area and your understanding of the problem. So somebody, for example, like me, I knew nothing about nanoparticles, so I would not be able to put that together. But I could do a very good literature review on library related research. And so that's where you just have to have read know some information in the subject area and really use literature to show that you understand the background of that subject all the way up to current day. And so that's another point that the literature review does, is it brings the reader up to date, getting everybody on the same page, kind of structures what you're going to present and says, okay, we're going to look at this research. And then it will also justify for future research, in which a lot of times you lead into your research with that justification. So this is a literature review at the beginning of most journal articles. But you can also do a systematic literature review. And a systematic literature review, and we're going to look at some different journal articles and compare and contrast. It's just a bit more rigorous. It's well-defined method. It's described in detail. So you're going to really list out what you're doing. The details, the time frame within the literature was selected. So when did you do this searching? That is usually identified in the literature review, in the systematic literature review. The details of the methods used to evaluate and synthesize the findings of the primary research studies are in question are listed here as well. So what I kind of like to say is that a systematic literature review is going to look at the original research in a subject area. So original research journal article identifies a problem within the subject area and then looks at it to, do a survey, like I said, or experiment, where a systematic literature review is really going to be studying the research already done. So that's going to be your survey, if you will, or your experiment. You're going to study the research already completed. So the Prisma checklist is a good reference. I have this link here for our library guide, and we can go ahead and look at that. Let me pull that up real quick. And I'll get that here. So you can see a lot of the information I'm covering is here, but I just like this flow chart. It really is a good way to kind of think about how to do a systematic review. And it works well with Rayyan in that these steps are very similar to what you would be doing with Rayyan. So we'll talk about that. But you're going to start out your research. You're going to identify your databases, and then you're going to pull those records out. And you're going to remove anything that is like duplicate records or something that is an automation tool. This is what Rayyan would be helping you with. And then you're going to screen your records, and you're going to decide things that you're going to exclude for whatever reason. And you may already have that decided before you even get into using the tool of Rayyan, in which I encourage you to do so. And we'll talk about some different questions that you really need to be asking yourself. And then you go ahead and get the retrieval of these, and then you can look at to assess the eligibility of your articles. So these would be reasons, like common things that most people would be eliminating things for is like maybe it's in a foreign language, maybe that setup for that experiment is not the way you're wanting to look at them, or whatever your research is letting you look at, you would want to identify those reasons and have those set out before. So then you can automatically say reason 1, reason 2, reason 3, and then you would have your ones that are included. So
hey, Cynthia,
I'm
sorry to interrupt. Somebody asked if you could please zoom in on the flow chart.
Okay, so it's kind of hard to see. Let me see if I can see it on the website. I will click on that. So it's just at the bottom of the link, and I'm just going to open that window, and we should see that together. And then I will see if this one's any better to look up. No, that's not going to be any better. I don't, maybe I can just increase my web page here. Let's see if that helps. Oh, that does help quite a bit. Let's do that. So this, I think, is a really good tool just to get yourself kind of started. And then the other thing that I kind of like here is the Prisma checklist. If you just click on this as well, I'll do that for us. It really kind of identifies what you're going to be doing, almost like a step-by-step. And I kind of like that. That really speaks to how I do my research. And so I can check mark what I've done. This is what I've done. This is the next thing. And so it really does help you move through the steps of a systematic literature review. So you have your eligibility criteria, your information resources, your search strategy. All those are listed here, and you can use the things that you want to use and not use the other things. Maybe you're not going to do a big analysis, but you're just going to gather the information together and look at it as a total. So not like a statistical analysis, you're just looking at the literature itself. So this is a good tool as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and get back into our PowerPoint. And so our next thing that we want to look at is really, now you're going to make a plan, just as if you would make a plan for any kind of research. If you're going to do a true kind of experiment, or if you're going to develop a survey and have that, or even observational, you would have to say, okay, in this research, I'm going to look at the users in the library from like 3 to 4. Well, you would have to tell your readers why you chose the hour 3 to 4. Was it random? Did you pick that hour on purpose? Was was there a reason that that hour seemed a better hour than other hours? Maybe you realize that most classes are coming in at that hour. Whatever it is, you have to identify that. And just like you would in those kind of experiments or research, you would plan the systematic review as well. So you got to make a plan for your review. And so what are the things that you would want to be looking at are, where will you be searching? So identify the databases. Maybe that is subject related, discipline related. Or maybe you're looking at Pubmed, which while it had been very subject related, but since 2013, all federally funded grants have to post their research somewhere, and Pubmed is the one that the government has chosen to use. So all federally funded research now is being posted in Pubmed. So that means all disciplines are in there. So you may want to make sure you're using Pubmed and then 2 or 3 subject specific databases. And then, which ones are you going to include? Which ones are you going to exclude? And what time frame? And this is like really when you're searching, not the years. We'll talk about that in a second. So if I was doing research this fall for a systematic review, I would say on September 1st, I'm going to start doing this research until December 1st. And all my searching in my databases will happen in those months. And you will go ahead and write that into the paper. That way you can just show a time frame. You don't know what's going to happen. Maybe there was something that was proven later, maybe Web of Science was down and only some certain articles were being posted. Well, you could prove that information later should that come to light and say, oh, yes, there were articles that I missed out of Web of Science because of whatever factor. So you just need to make sure you document that so that your readers are aware of that, and that so people can replicate what you've done. And so you can say, oh, I can see that this information was only between this month and this month. Then what years would you include? This again is a little bit subject orientated. You may want to look at, if I was looking at something like AI, I may not want to include the last 10 years or even the last 5 years. Something that was happening in AI in 2016 will probably be light years old compared to what is happening in the last 18 months. So you may have to identify, oh, due to the speed of how the subject is turning over, we only included the last 3 years or last whatever you've decided. But think about that before you get involved and identify what you think is best. If I was doing research on something that happened, years ago, maybe, let's say it was something like on the Civil War. Of course, you would not have to just limit that for the last 10 years. You could do a lot of research, but you have to identify what amount you want to include. So a lot of times that will include the years. So depending on what the history of that topic is, maybe there was a lot of research done in a Pacific area, a Pacific time area. And so you would say, oh, I really want to look at what happened during the 90s. And I think that that can influence us today because of this. Whatever your justification is, feel free to include it, but you just need to think about that. Then you would want to look at your keywords and your subject terms, and those are different. Keywords is searching for anything, and subject terms are identified vocabulary that a database is using. And so sometimes you can use those subject terms across different databases. You have to just make sure that every database that you're going to choose to use is using the same subject term for what you're looking for. So, and then there may be something that you want to not include. I know just recently, somebody in nutrition was looking at beef marrow, and there was some enzyme that they were excluding. And so they wanted to specifically make sure if any article included that enzyme, they were not going to include that in their literature review. So identify those things and see what you want to include, what you don't want to include, and then write that in the paper so that you can share that with your audience, saying this is the reason why this wasn't included. These are the reasons why these things were included. And then let's go ahead and look at some articles. So I'm just going to get us out of here real quick. And so let's look at some articles that are some just original research. I'm just going to pull up one of these. I have a couple examples. Let me just pull this over here. So here is an article about academic libraries, and you can see we have the abstract up here, but then we start into the instruction, and this one automatically identifies the literature review. But there are other sections, and if we scroll all the way in, we can see that we actually get to methods. And let's just look at a few others here. So this one is a little bit more science orientated. And so we just have the introduction, and you can see that we're starting to cite quite a bit. So I realize this is our lit review in this original research, and it's still happening. And then we get down to our methods. So even though it didn't have the identified lit review as a bold subheading, it's still, this is the literature review here. And as you read more, you'll be able to see that. Let's just look at one other one. I thought this was a good example because this is an example of a structured abstract. This is starting to be more common. And so you can see they didn't even use the word intro, they just said the background. But again, that is getting everybody on the same page. We're saying this is what has happened in the past. This is what we think is a concern. And we think it's a concern because these people have addressed it in these ways, or these people haven't addressed it in these ways. And so then you have your methods, results, and conclusions. And so then if you look at the article, that's exactly what you have. You have your background, and it goes on down in the bottom here. And then your methods are listed here. Now let's take a look at some articles that are, excuse me, sorry about that, systematic reviews. So we have our abstract here, and then we go into our intro. And so then you can start to see that they have included the things that I've been listing, like what is the eligibility criteria? What is our search strategy? This is listed in our methods area. And so you can see what they've said. We're going to be doing a search-based search, and we're going to conduct it in these different databases. And these are the words that we're going to use, and that this is the time frame that we're looking at. And let's see if there's anything else that I wanted to point out here. I think even here, maybe this is what we're looking for, and what is included in our eligibility criteria. And then let's look at a few others here. So that was very science heavy. That was nutrients or nutrition. And then now we're looking at libraries again. So we have an introduction. And if we start to look through here, we have some different subheadings in our introduction, but still getting everybody on the same page. It's our lit review broken up into different areas. But then even here, it tells you, oh, we are going to look at these from this time to this time. And we're focusing first here, and we're establishing inclusion and exclusion criteria, and that we performed our searches from October 15th to November 14th in 2017. So I think that right there is and here's the databases that we used. People, I don't think to include this little bit of information of when that happened, but I think that's vital to knowing what is going on in those databases for whatever reason. You know, maybe you find out that something has occurred technically, or maybe that somebody backloads a lot later on, and you could prove that it was not during this time that we had information for those items. So let me just look at one more, and we can see a different, oh, and here's another structured abstract for a systematic review. I thought that might be an interesting look at too. And again, it's just telling about our methods and what we're going to search, why we're researching it, and why things are included and excluded. Here's the list of criteria. So you can see when it was published, what was not included. So those are the kinds of things you would want to make sure you're describing in your methodology when you're doing a systematic review. Okay, I'm going to open our PowerPoint again. Oops. Sorry, guys. Let me just scooch down here. And so as we start our research, we know that we want to identify our research question, whatever that may be. We want to identify our databases. I listed PubMed here as that's their federal funded option, but Web of Science, Scopus, if you're more in social sciences, you might even be in Psych Info, some other great databases out there. But you're going to get lots of results. And how are you going to get through all of those results? And so first, you're going to use the database to narrow some things down. You can narrow down by your years of what you're going to include in the research or not in the research. And so you can have your database help you filter some of that out. Sometimes you can narrow down by population. Of course, you can narrow down by using more keywords or subject terms. But then we're going to use Rayyan to help us narrow some of that stuff, some of those articles out too. So in Rayyan, authors or a team, and that's one thing that I really like about Rayyan is that it is very collaborative if you want it to be, can create, maintain over time, and get suggested articles for inclusion and exclusion, which is really useful, I think. It's letting the software work for you. And then you can quickly screen articles. You can detect duplicates. Using visual clues, you can help in the screening. And then Rayyan uses some machine learning for the recommendation, and we'll see how that works. You don't really need to know anything about machine learning. It's just a click of the button, but I'll explain how that works. And then, of course, there's support for collaboration. So you can invite anybody to the tool. And Rayyan is an open source free tool. And they do have some different plans now. When I first started using it, it was totally open. But if you want to pay for some added features, then you can do so. I'm just going to demonstrate the free tool today. And I think you can do all your work with a free tool, so you don't have to worry about a cost if that's not what you're wanting. And then so our steps to using Rayyan, we're going to use our detect duplicates button first. Then we're going to start screening to include or exclude. We're using the filter menu on the left to do some of the work. I'll show you how to do all these steps. And then we're going to use reasons, and I'll explain more about what that means once we get into the software. And then careful about labels. And the difference there is reasons will help Rayyan assist you in finding things to include or exclude, where labels are just be useful to you. It won't help Rayyan help you. So depending on what you need to do for your own research, do what you need. And then the ratings. So that's what's really going to help you include or exclude articles. But it only works after you've made 50 decisions in there. You think 50 decisions, that's a lot to be doing, but it's very quick. And in fact, I had seen people try to do systematic reviews using Word and dropping abstracts and notes on a Word template, and everybody is in there using the same word. So like if you have a team of 5 digging in there and adding articles and saying, oh, we should include this one or not this one, and making notes on there, it's just not an efficient tool to use. And then I've seen some people try to use Excel, where you have the whole citation in each piece, like the authors and the date in each column, and then you would have notes out to the in the far right column. It is just a lot of back and forth, scrolling back and forth. And so I just think this tool makes it so much easier. So let's look at that. So let's get started with that. I'm going to go ahead and ask Jenny to put this link in the chat. And then if you will go ahead and start to sign up for Rayyan, that would be great. I do say it does say that it takes up to 24 hours, but I've created a couple accounts just to kind of test the capabilities, and it comes back very quickly. So I think we can all sign up and move into using the tool pretty quickly. You will need to open your email to confirm. So, and I've even tested that you can sign up on your computer here, but then use your mobile device to confirm the link in your email if you want to, instead of opening your email here. Whatever you want to do. Some people, you know, have that easy access to their email, and so that easily works there. As we're letting you sign up just a bit, I'm going to look at a few more screenshots, and then we'll get into a demo. But it would be good now to ask any questions if we have any at the moment, while we're waiting a minute for people to sign up. Okay.
Currently no questions.
Okay, thank you. And so before I get out of PowerPoint, I'm just going to look at some of those screenshots so we can let y'all have a minute to look too. But we're going to see these screens in the demo in the live version too. So don't, if you're working on your signing up, don't feel like you're missing something. Okay, so the home screen is very simple. When you land in here, once you've set it up, you would click on new review to create a new review. You'll have 0 reviews listed here when you first sign up. And then this is the working dashboard. And so this is a review that I've been working on for a little bit. And so when you are in here, you can see up here at the top, it's a split screen with a menu on the side. So let's kind of talk about this screen. So you have your list of articles here in the center. And when you highlight one, then you can see that information down below. So this is the title here, and here's the abstract below in the kind of periwinkle, if you will, color down here. And I've been working on this, so you can see that I've taken some action, and that's why my name is out to the front is green or red. So that means I've included some of these and I've excluded some of these, and we'll do those actions together. And then depending on what is populated by your references is what is populated over here on the left menu. So you can see at the top, I've has 77 undecided. I've included 66 articles and I've excluded 13 articles in this set. And then we can move on through here and look at all of those. And this is one of the sets that we'll be looking at today. But I just wanted you to see this screen because sometimes you don't really understand what you're aiming for until you see a one that has been kind of manipulated a little bit. So when we first start to upload our items, our references, this is the screen we'll be working on, and you can see that you can upload multiple different things here, different files from different locations. It works with EndNote, Mendeley, just from your desktop if you have a collection of references somewhere already. If you were starting your systematic review and dumping them into an Excel spreadsheet, you could pull those in here. Now, if you run in a Word, that's going to be hard, but depending on how you have it in a Word, we might make it work. And then it has the Pubmed option in the Science Direct guide here. Now, these guides sometimes were not so user-friendly to me, and we'll talk about that as we dig in there a little bit. But I was able to get all these things to work, so we can definitely do some examples if you feel like you're going to get stuck. And then this is what it first looks like when you've uploaded things, but you've not made any decisions. So you can see here on this screen, it is 650 new articles. Here's all the articles. and have not made any choices yet. And then just to make sure you're aware, you have to make 50 decisions. I know I mentioned that earlier, but before you can use the computer rankings that are built into Rayyan, and we'll talk about that as we get into the live demo. I want to make sure, and it will tell you if you've not made enough decisions, it'll tell you, oh, you need to make some more decisions, and maybe that number will be 43 here as it is in this example, or maybe it'll be 10 or 15 or whatever you have that you need to. So I see that there's a little bit more chatting, but I'm going to escape here and then get into my own account, unless anybody has any questions here in the PowerPoint before we leave it. Okay.
No questions so far. People are just saying that it's working for them. So.
Okay, good, great. So then I'm going to jump in with my own account. I'm going to clean up some work here, and we may come back to that. Okay, so you should have started out on this screen. I'm going to go ahead and get into sign in here, open my own account. I already had an account, so I don't need to create an account. So maybe you're looking at something that is similar to this, but it would have 0 reviews, but we'll load up a review if you're ready to get going with that. I don't want to start digging into this screen until I feel like most of us have kind of gotten to where we want to be. If you all think you're in a good spot, maybe we can do a thumbs up real quick, or just a yes. If anybody is stuck, please say something now, and we can wait a minute or two longer.
Cynthia, there is a question in the chat.
Okay.
They're asking, after signing up, how will they get the app? Is it free for TTU students?
So yeah, it's not even just for TTU, it's free on the web. So you can just log into Rayyan, any browser you have. And there is a mobile app, but I have not used that yet, but we can maybe look at that. I'll try to make a note and do the last 15 minutes of it, of the workshop, and we can kind of maybe explore together about the mobile app. I bet you just download it from your store, and Rayyan is spelled R-A-Y-Y-A-N if you haven't figured that out yet. I was just going to open my phone real quick and see if I could find Rayyan in my, yes, and so you would just download it just like any other free app or game or other similar product that you've used there. Maybe you've used a different kind of tool that marries with something that that has a subscription that you're paying for. So I'm sure lots of us have put apps there. Did everybody find it on their phone, or does anybody that had that question want to ask a clarifying question? Okay, I'm gonna keep going forward then. Okay, so here on this screen, let's talk about this a little bit. You can see my name is down here, and so will yours be. And then you can sign out, or you can have some other access to your account. Otherwise, you're going to be using most of these tools here at the top. I'm going to try to keep us out of the way. Maybe I'll put us down here. I can even hide it there, but I just like to see that a little bit sometimes. Yeah, put it over here. Okay, so let's look at this. So I have reviews here. So you can see I have 3 sitting here. I do have one archive just so you could see one. If you have multiple sitting in here, you may have something that's archived. In fact, if you don't use your review for a while, then they automatically archive it, but you can just bring it right back. So when I show click archives, you can see that there's an extra one here. And then I'm just going to open this one. And I just clicked on it and it opened this little extra screen. And so then I could show that one so that I could get to the working dashboard, if you will, or I could invite other people to this to collaborate with me. Now, if I'm inviting other people to collaborate with me, they will still live in my reviews because I will own that review. It's only when somebody is asking me to collaborate with them will I have something in this tab. And you can see that I've also invited a colleague, Jingjing Wu, to collaborate down here. And so you can see your collaborators are listed here. And then you can click this button to archive it. And then if it is archived, you can click a similar to unarchive and it will come here. And then if you, for whatever reason, really wanted to delete it, you could delete it here. And then once you have asked somebody to collaborate with you, you can have this blind button appears. And so the blind on, that means that Jingjing and I cannot see what the other person is doing to the making the decisions or the labels. So then it's kind of like a blind process. Or you can turn that off and everybody can see together and work together. So just depending on what you want for your research, you can choose to have this on or off. Now, I'm not going to get into this one right away. We may look at all of these at some point. But let's go ahead and open a new review, and then we can all do that together. Oh, before that, let me finish talking about this. So collaboration is if somebody asks me, and then if somebody asks me to translate. So I probably will never have anything in this translate only reviews because I can't translate research for somebody else. But these other reviews, these are public reviews, and you can use this data as well. So they have decided to try to collect all the COVID research out there, and they're at almost 80,000 articles sitting in here. And you can open that. I'm not going to open it because it takes a while to load that many, but you could open any one of these and use it. They do ask you to make a copy, and so that you can move that over to your own stuff and not make choices here. And in fact, I think the decision making is turned off in these public ones. That's why you download it information and then move it to your own review. So I'm going to click back on my reviews.
Hey, Cynthia?
Yeah.
They're asking if you could zoom in any way possible. There we go. Yeah.
Y'all just ask. I know I can't see either, so y'all tell me. And so then we're going to just click on review. Do we feel like we got all of that? So I was just talking about the collaboration tab, translate tab, the other tabs, and then my reviews. Now these really won't make any sense to you because that's just what I labeled them. So I was looking at user experience here in the library and library user experience. And then I've set up one that we're going to use today. But I'm going to do a new review so that we can all walk through that together. And I want that to start kind of working because it does take a minute to bring in some of the references. It takes a bit for Ryan to get set up. So I'm going to click on new review. I'm going to name it something. I'm going to do test Ryan, but you can name it whatever you want to. And then if I wanted to put in an optional description here, it's like a review for workshop. Maybe that's what I will say here. And then I'm going to scroll down and click create. And then it's going to create that for us. And I'm going to back out just a little bit here, but hopefully not too far where you can't see. And so this is the screen where I'm actually going to upload some references. So I would select the files and put it in here, and then it takes a while for that. This is like the old kind of, it's loading bar, if you will, and we'll see that. But here again are some of the tools or the guides that you can use, like EndNote Guide, Mendeley. I haven't worked with Mendeley yet, but we can tackle that. The Pubmed guide. Let's just look at one of these so we can see what it's going to do. And I'm going to actually have us search in Pubmed and pull some things out of there. So I'm going to click on the Medline, Pubmed guide, and then you have to click on this extra link, which I didn't really understand. And then it has a screenshot, and it just says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you don't know all of that information, it's hard to kind of figure that out. And I think most of their guides are like that. But I am familiar with this because I use this database all the time. So we'll work on that together. So I'm just going to close this, and then we're back on our new review for the test Ryan. So actually, I'm going to grab another tab and just get into a database. Let's use Pubmed. I'm going to use library. You can get to the library just by typing in library.ttu.edu. That's an easy way to remember it if you didn't know that one off the top of your head. And then I'm going to use this databases A to Z link that's under this find articles here. The first link there. I'm going to click there. And I'm going to search for Pubmed. So let's talk about why am I searching for Pubmed this way? Well, if I were to just Google Pubmed, I could search in Pubmed on the open internet, but it wouldn't know that I was a TTU related student faculty. And so it would ask me to pay for all the articles. But if I just search for Pubmed through the library, it automatically knows that I am affiliated with Texas Tech, and then it will help me find the articles for free or allow me to use our document delivery service. And if you don't know about the document delivery, ask us at the end. We definitely want you to know that. Okay, so I'm going to click on online access. And then let's do some searching. So I just took a topic here, and I'm going to do obesity. Let's do childhood obesity. Oh, here it is. And then risk factors. And I'm adding so many terms so that we can get some. Get our results down. So I want us to have such a smaller set. And so then I want to put in intervention. And I also, let's talk about a few things. I have mine set to have 5 years always. But if you don't have that, all you have to do is come down and mark the 5 years limit. Or if you want to use 10 years, or you only want to use a year, whatever you want to. Or you can even move this slider and make it any year you want. And so I'm going to go back to my 5 years. So now we're just at under 3,000. That's still a large set because we want to pull some into Rayyan that is, more than just 50 or so. We want more than that, so they're going to help us understand our So it can learn what we're doing so that it can help suggest or include or exclude. That's the best way to say that. So I'm going to click on save. I'm going to click on all results because I want to remove all under 3,000 results. And then I'm going to choose Pubmed. And so it's going to do a format of Pubmed. And then I'm going to create this file. And I happen to be in Chrome. You can do this in any browser, but it stores mine at the bottom down here. And it's going to take a minute for it to build because there's a lot of items. And then I'm going to go back to my other tab and pull that into Rayyan. So I'm going to say select files. It's stored it in my downloads. Here's the childhood, Pubmed childhood obesity is what it's going to start to say there. And then it tells you that set. I'm going to say open. And then it's going to take a minute for that to load up. How is everybody doing? Did everybody kind of follow those steps of getting to a database, getting those records pulled out, exported out of the database into a file, getting the file into Rayyan?
People are saying yes.
Okay, good. So while that is kind of loading up, you can see some of these other migration guides. If you get stuck on any of these migration guides, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you. It took me a minute to get EndNote to work, but I did, so I know how to do that, and we can definitely help you if you're using that tool. EndNote and Mendeley are tools to help you cite while you write in your papers. So if you're not using a citation management tool, you might want to do that. And so we're just going to let it finish working here just a second longer, and then we'll be able to click on continue. Okay, so I'm going to say continue, and now we just built a new review labeled Test Rayyan, and it has right at the moment 200, 700. That might refresh as I'm talking. You can see it's adding in, and you can see that it pulled this document in, and it's pulling them up as we speak. And once that gets completed, then you will see some items here in the center. So now that we have one set up, some of our first steps that we will be using is to do the detect duplicates. And it does take it a minute to do that as well. So as soon as it gets loaded in here, I'm going to go ahead and click on this button over here that says detect duplicates, and it will make another menu over here. So we have all of ours in, and you can say, okay, so here we are. We have them in. So you can see I have all of them in undecided. I haven't made any choices. I'm going to go ahead and hit that detect duplicates because it'll take it a second for it to start doing that. And then we can see some other things. So it's already found 14. I can start working with those. But before we do that, I'm going to kind of orientate ourselves to this screen just a bit. So you can see here, there's lots of windows on the left-hand side. So as it's building the articles in, it can tell you which ones are the most popular. This is just a regular word cloud. So the most repeated words are the biggest. So you can see risk factors, humans, female, male, child, because we were looking at childhood obesity. So that would be good. It will let you look at locations. It'll let you include languages, specific journals if you want to do that, specific authors, different years. Like we have one from 1993. Maybe I don't want to include that, so I could exclude it. So let's go back up here and work on the duplicates found. I'm going to click on this, and it should bring up the duplicates. So it changed it to say start detecting duplicates. So then I'm going to look over here on the unresolved, and that is the possible duplicates. So I'm going to click on that. So one thing that I don't really like about Rayyan is once you click on something, that's what is shown here in the center. But then if I don't remember to unclick that and I want to click on this, then now it is really only searching for anything that has compared with and one that is unresolved. So you have to remember to unclick that, and then you can see all of the compared with. So anytime you have something that is highlighted in yellow over here, you can even do that from the word clouds. It will change what is displayed over here. And so you see it's showing 1 of 9 out of the 866. But if I turn that off, it'll go back to all of them. So I'm going to move up here to the unresolved because that's what we want to work on. And whenever you see this little icon, that means there's a duplicate. So I'm just going to click on this first one here because that's what we're going to start with. And so then you can see this is starting to look a lot more like our working dashboard that we saw in the screenshot. I've highlighted something. You can see something sitting down here. I could choose exclude or include or maybe if I'm not sure. And sometimes you might want to use the maybe if like you really need to look at the whole article and you don't have that right here. So you could put a maybe and keep on moving if you needed to. But let's go ahead and resolve this duplicate. So I'm going to look at clicking on this resolve duplicate. And then you can see that it has given me some scrolling. Before it was just stuck to here. Now it's let me see the other one. So what I want to do now is see hypertension, childhood obesity by this author. Is that what's down here? No. Even though we have the same title, we have different authors, different publication dates. So we can say this is not a duplicate. And when I do that, it automatically makes a decision. So it says resolved, and now I'm down to 12 that need to be looked at. So let's look at another one. Let's see here. I thought there was one. Well, let's just look at the next one. So then I can do the same kind of steps and see if this is one. So I'm going to resolve it. It gives me the option to look at the second one. So this one with the authors, it is a duplicate. So I'm going to say I can delete one of these. Now, is one of these citations a little bit more complete than the other? If so, I would choose that one to keep and then eliminate the one that is less full. And I don't see, I think they are very similar. So I'm just going to delete this one. And now we've said, okay, this one is good. I'm going to say include this one. And then we've marked it. So we've resolved some of those. So as I want to look at all of them, I can click on this and it will let me see all of them and work through those. So let's go ahead and talk about some of that. I can just go ahead and highlight anyone and say include. And now, as I was doing my research here, I would want to make sure I'm including these for my criteria. Here, I'm going to be a little bit more haphazard because I'm showing you how to make the tool work, not necessarily that I'm doing good research within the tool, if that makes sense. Okay, here's a good example. This is from Czech. So maybe I can't read Czech. Maybe that's the only way that this is produced. Oh, no, but it is in English, but I would, maybe look at that and say, oh, are we going to include Czech adolescents or maybe not? And so depending on if I didn't want that, I can say exclude. So as I start to make some different choices, then I can mark it. The more choices I make, I have to make up to 50 for the computer to understand what I'm doing. And so I might even make a reason, like, especially this one, if I'm going to exclude Czech, then here's a reason. I can say it's the wrong population and I can mark it as such. And that would be really good if I was working with a team and so that they would understand why I'm excluding as well. Even though we've had a conversation, I'm going to work on mine, you're going to work on yours, but just kind of giving a clue. If I had other people working with me in here, their name would be sitting out here. And we can look at one of those so you can see where there's multiple people working on the same one. And you can see how that is working through. Now, when I was talking earlier in the PowerPoint, we have the reasons and the labels. So the reasons are excluded. It helps Rayyan understand what is happening. But a label, if I just make a label for something, let's say I want to say, for some reason, I don't want to include this because maybe it's too long of a study. This is a 16-year-old study. So I'm going to say long study. So I can type whatever I want here and make a label. But so it is labeled blue. So anything that is marked red or green, it's helping Rayyan figure it out. But whenever it's just a neutral, then it's not. And if I put a maybe, then you can see I'm not red or green. I'm just sitting there. I'm not sure yet. And so you can also make other kind of notes. So if I wanted to add a note, like a longer comment here to my team, whatever that would be, I can say like long comment to the rest of the team. I can type whatever I want here, save it, and it puts a little note there. You can make those notes to yourself too, however you want to do that, but that's what this icon is. And then if you want to have the highlights on, I kind of like that. So I have mine on, and I think the default is on, but you can always turn it off if it's too distracting. And so that just helps you see. And so they are already suggesting keywords for inclusion and keywords to exclude. So prevalence is one of the ones that exclude. So if you don't want that to happen, then you just have to say, no, I don't want that to be in the excluding. And then I can delete it completely if I wanted to. And just by clicking on this little trash can. And so I say yes. And any label that you've made here, like a long study, it's over here. So you can look for your labels as you want. And as you see, different things are populating as, so these menus are not finite. They change depending on what you've loaded in and what they can export. So let's say I want to add a PDF here. If I have the PDF for this article, I can load it up here, and then I will see a PDF option over here as well. So it's very interesting what populates over here and what doesn't populate. So if you only want to look at USA, you can just click on that. And I think we actually have the duplications still being detected. So let me clear that first and get us to the undecided. And we can get up. In fact, I think I might just do the duplicates really quick. Let's get into another one that I have some set up, and you can see what I'm talking about there. Because as you're doing some more decision making, you will see some differences. So I will get into this other one that I have already done a lot of work in. And so you can see I have only a few unresolved, but I've made 46 included and 8 unexcluded. And I think I have a PDF in here. Yeah, so this is an example that has the PDF, and you can see the PDF is down here. So I can read the PDF, but that's what those icons are. And then, you know, the duplicate icon, it would be sitting here if there would happen to be a duplication here. So now, once we've done some work on this, I can actually come over here and use some other tools. So the computer ratings only work once you've made so many decisions. You have to do the 50 decisions, as I've said before. So if I click on this, then it will run another analysis of the information, and then it will actually start to show the ratings here. And so I'm not going to click that here on this set. I'll go back on the other set and show it. But it takes a while for that to run. And the larger the set is, the longer it takes. And you can't really leave that screen. And so I didn't want to do that in the moment. But so here you can see that it is told me this one I would probably want to include, even though I haven't done that. So it's helping me make a decision on the rest of the articles that I haven't made a choice on. And so then, for example, this one, it's only like 50-50. Maybe I don't want to include that one. And so I would maybe make it exclude. So that is how this computer or Rayyan is going to help you include or exclude items once you click on this computer ratings. And so the stars will help you identify. And there's no star here because it's actually been decided. So it's only the ones that hasn't been decided that will have the rating once you click on that. And then let's just talk about a few other navigation tools here. If you want to export this whole set into another place, like maybe you want to use all these in your citation manager, you can export them into EndNote or into Mendeley. Just as you would export, you could put them in here from those tools. You can make a copy, which just makes a new review, and then you can label it something different. And then a new search. So if you do a new search, that actually puts you into this screen where you can upload. So if I wanted to upload more things to this set, you can see on ours that we were building, we had just uploaded one set, but this one I have two files that I've uploaded here. And if I clicked here, it would put me back on that screen so I could add more files or references to this review. So I'm just going to click back. I can also do that from here. And so I can get to it in two different places in the same place. Just like I can add keywords here. So maybe it hasn't suggested a keyword that I really think is useful. So I'm going to add a keyword and I can just say maybe user, or if I wanted to say user experience, I could do that. I'll say okay. And then it's going to identify the ones in this review that have the word user listed. And so you can even add ones to exclude and it will start to do that. So let's go back over and see if we can run the computer ratings. Oh, I'm sorry, this last button, it just goes back to all the references. All the reviews, I'm sorry. I used the wrong word there, all the reviews. So let's just go back into our test one and do the computer. Oh, we won't have enough decisions made yet. Let's see if we can do the one right before that. This workshop one, I kind of had set that up as an example so that we can see that too. And let's see if I've made enough decisions in here to make that work. Maybe not. I'm going to look in one other one. Let's see. I wanted to show you that, but the one that has it already is the star's already there. But I think you can reanalyze once you've made some different decisions. So I'm going to click on that. So it tells you that the new ratings are being calculated and it takes a minute for that to happen. And then you will see that they kind of update the ratings over here. So the only other thing that we would want to do is look at how we might pull some different files into Rayyan. So if so when it blinks like that, I think it is done. So you can say, okay. Oh, it tells you new ratings. I'm sorry. Did y'all see that? It was so quick. I don't know if it'll let me do it again. It will tell me, no, you need to wait. But it says new ratings are available. And then when you click on it, then it updates it. And so I clicked on it before I saw that it was there. So then these will be the new ratings. So do we want to try to pull some different files in here? I think some of those might be useful, but if we're not going to use those, I don't want to, if you're never going to use EndNote or Medline or another tool, I don't want to spend time doing that and waste your time. But I think even just showing you one of those, because we just got one out of a database, it might be nice. What are your thinking? Does anybody use EndNote? I think I'll put it in this one. What do we have here? I'm not hearing much, so I might go ahead and do that. Okay.
Oh, Cynthia, somebody's asking, what about Zotero?
You know, they don't say that they work with Zotero, and I haven't played around with that. But I definitely could add that to our list. And if we do one, you can kind of see what you're looking for. So let's go ahead and do at least one out of EndNote before we wrap up. Let's see if I can get my EndNote up here so you can see what is happening. Because
somebody in the chat is saying that they did it for Zotero. They just exported an RIS file and it worked.
Yeah, that's what I was going to show too. And EndNote, when you get in here, because it does tell you here, so supported formats. If that's not dropped down for you, you can click on it when you open something else, it covers it. So these are all the supported formats that it has. And that's what I use most of the time. In fact, that's what you see in my 2 uploaded files, except for the Pubmed one that we just did. I like using the RIS because almost any tool will read that. And so, and it will, Mendeley, no, because it's looking at it in the PDF, but Zotero will. If you're getting citations out of Google Scholar, you should mark it to this Roughman RIS file, and that's one that I think is just a generic one. So I'm just going to pull my EndNote over here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to choose a folder that has some sitting here. Let me just make sure that that is not what is sitting in there already. Nope. Okay, good. So, and then so you would go under File and Export. And so in Zotero, I'm sure you're just looking for an export as well. Then you're going to label it whatever you want to label it. I'm going to go ahead and just label it my folder name. And you will want to stay in the text file. And then here you can export it to the RIS format. It does in Rayyan say to use this EndNote export, but I've done both and both work. So I'm just going to leave it in the RIS format. Then you're going to click Save. It's going to put that in my folder where I told it to put it. I'm going to move my EndNote out of the way so you can see. And then I'm going to add this new folder. I'm going to select a file. Actually, I think that that stores that on my desktop. Let me grab that real quick. And so I labeled it the folder name. So I'm going to open this. So it only had 237 citations in it, so it loaded a lot quicker than what we saw about the 3,000. So I'm going to click on Continue. And now you can see in my set that we have 3 files uploaded, and we have a whole new set to be looking at, to be adding. Of course, now this set is not related to this research, so it will not be useful to Rayyan to learn how to manipulate the citations here, but it would at least let us see what we could be looking at. And once you load up anything else, you would want to do your duplicates, and then you would start wanting to make sure you look at the new ones. So you can see the new ones have just populated to the top here. It'd take a minute for it to load in. And so we could look at whatever we're wanting to say, maybe, exclude. And then it will start to understand what we're looking for in the ones that we are including. You can store your PDFs, as I said in here, but they won't load in from the databases. And I do caution that a bit, depending on where, who you're collaborating with. Once you've loaded a PDF in here, it is anybody that can see your review can see that PDF. So as I collaborate across maybe universities or across the globe, I want to make sure that I'm being respectful to the copyright where I found those materials. So if they're behind a paywall and I'm sharing them in an open access kind of setting here, I would be concerned about that. I wouldn't want to do that. I don't think it would cause a problem, but I would just want to act on the caution side. All right, and so we're just about 15 minutes out from the end of the workshop, and I did look at my phone and was able to find that download, and I'm sure you can just install it, and let's see if it takes a long time to sync it up with our account online. I'll look real quick. I doubt it, because you'll just sign in with your email and the password that you created, and then you should see the same thing. I know people that stand at the grocery store and read on their phone. I cannot do that, but if y'all can do it, that is great. Does anybody have any questions where we went a little fast, or you're confused about something? Feel free to ask, and we'll kind of look at that.
Currently, no questions.
Okay. Well, I did get a issue. Let's see if it's just my phone issue or if it's a problem with it. For the mobile app, I was downloading that. I did download it. And then I said, it says mismatch of CPU architecture. So there must be some kind of mismatch. Okay. Okay. It's asking me to restart. So let's see what happens there. Also, I have to say that my phone is very full, so I'm not sure it will really work here. Let's see. Well, unless you want to hang around and see what the mobile app looks like, if we can get it going, then I think we've done what we've come to do. We learned how to use Rayyan. We learned what a systematic review was, and we learned how to make the Rayyan tool work for us by using the computer rating. So it'll help us to just include and exclude. Oh, you know what? We didn't look at one of those other ones where you can see multiple reviewers on one. I think that is this one. Let's see if I can. Yes. So you can see as they've worked through this, they have Esther and Zabis working through here. I think that's the only two that are working through here. And but then they've labeled quite a few of them, either including or excluding, maybe everybody. No, there's still some that are undecided. So, and if I were to just click on one, I could see the article down here. All right, let's see, my phone rebooted. Let's see if we can get that tool. I wish y'all could see my screen. I don't know if y'all have noticed that, but there's a little like red and green icon up here in the corner. That's what it looks like on the store, in the Android store at least. So it's asking me to download something else, and I don't know if I'll have enough space for that. Let's see.
So Cynthia, I was actually able to download it on my phone, and it seems to work just fine.
Good. Yeah, it's going to take a minute for that to download. It's a little bit bigger. Did you have, so what it asked me to download second time was the crosswalk project. Did you have to do that?
I did not know.
Yeah. So that might be my phone issue in that it's a little older, maybe, I'm not sure. Or do you use iOS or?
Yes.
Yes. So mine is also Samsung Android. So that might be the difference to the different platforms. So, but at least we have one person that says that they can at least get it and going. That would be good. All right. Thank y'all so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.